I never believed in love at first sight until I met Daniel Park. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when I stumbled into the glass doors of Park Enterprises, soaking wet and clutching my portfolio like it was the last lifeboat on the Titanic. I was there for a job interview, junior marketing associate, nothing glamorous. Just a chance to pay my student loans and maybe afford more than instant noodles for dinner. "Are you all right?" A deep voice made me look up from wringing out my jacket. That's when I saw him. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, with dark hair swept back and eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies. He was extending a pristine white handkerchief toward me, concern etched across his impossibly handsome face. "I'm fine," I managed to stutter, taking the handkerchief with trembling fingers. "Just wasn't expecting the storm." He smiled, and I swear the fluorescent office lights seemed to dim in comparison. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. "I'm Daniel Park." My heart stopped. Daniel Park, as in the CEO of Park Enterprises, the man whose face graced the covers of business magazines, the youngest self-made billionaire in the country. "I know who you are," I whispered, then immediately wanted to crawl into a hole. I'm here for an interview." "Sarah Chun, junior marketing associate position." "Sarah Chun." He said my name like he was tasting wine, savoring each syllable. "Your portfolio impressed our hiring team. Though I have to say you're even more impressive in person." Was the CEO of a billion-dollar company flirting with me? No. Impossible. Men like Daniel Park dated supermodels and heiresses, not 26-year-old women with student debt and thrift store clothes. "Thank you, Mr. Park," I said professionally, trying to ignore how my heart was doing gymnastics in my chest. "Daniel," he corrected, his smile widening. "And I hope you'll let me take you to dinner after your interview. To welcome you to the company, of course." "I haven't gotten the job yet," I pointed out. "You will." He said it with such certainty that I almost believed him. And he was right. 3 hours later, I walked out of Park Enterprises with a job offer and Daniel Park's business card with his personal number written on the back. The dinner date turned into coffee dates, which turned into long walks in the park, which turned into stolen moments in his office after everyone else had gone home. Daniel was different from what I expected. Yes, he was brilliant and driven, and commanded respect wherever he went, but with me he was gentle, thoughtful. He remembered that I liked my coffee with 2 sugars and no cream. He noticed when I was tired and would massage my shoulders without being asked. He laughed at my terrible jokes and listened when I talked about my dreams of traveling the world. 3 months into our relationship, he invited me to Sunday dinner at his family home. "You don't have to if you're not ready," he said, though I could see the hope in his eyes. "But I'd really like you to meet my father." I'd heard about Daniel's father, Richard Park, the man who'd built Park Enterprises from nothing, who'd raised Daniel alone after his wife died when Daniel was just 5 years old. Daniel spoke of him with reverence and love, and I knew how important this was. "I'd love to meet him," I said, squeezing Daniel's hand. The Park family estate was everything I'd imagined and more. A sprawling mansion with perfectly manicured gardens, a fountain that probably cost more than my parents' house, and enough square footage to house a small village. My nerves were doing a tap dance as Daniel led me through the massive front doors. "Dad!" Daniel called out, his hand warm and reassuring in mine. "In the study!" came a gruff voice. The study was all dark wood and leather, filled with books and photographs. In the center of it all sat a man who was clearly an older version of Daniel, same strong features, same intelligent eyes, though his hair was silver and his face was lined with the wisdom of years. "Dad, this is Sarah Chun," Daniel said, and I could hear something in his voice I'd never heard before. Nervousness. "Sarah, this is my father, Richard Park." Richard Park stood slowly, studying me with an intensity that made me feel like he was reading my entire life story in the span of seconds. Then, suddenly, his stern expression cracked into a warm smile. "Finally," he said, pulling me into an unexpected hug. "Finally, my son brings home the woman he won't stop talking about." I glanced at Daniel, who had turned an adorable shade of red. "Dad!" "Oh, don't dad me," Richard laughed, releasing me and gesturing for us to sit. "For 3 months, all I've heard is Sarah said this and Sarah did that. And Dad, you should see how brilliant she is. I was beginning to think you'd invented her." I don't talk about her that much, Daniel protested weakly. Son, you talk about her constantly, Richard said, his eyes twinkling. Last week, you spent 45 minutes telling me about how she reorganized the marketing department's filing system. The filing system, Daniel. I couldn't help but laugh, and Daniel groaned, hiding his face in his hands. Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Richard was charming and funny, telling embarrassing stories about young Daniel that made my boyfriend turn increasingly red. He was such a serious child, Richard said, refilling my wine glass. Always had his nose in a book, always planning and strategizing. I worried he'd never learn to just live, to feel things. And then, I prompted, and then he met you. Richard's voice grew soft, and he looked at his son with such profound love that it made my throat tight. 3 months ago, he came home and said, Dad, I met the most amazing woman today. She walked into my building looking like a drowned cat, and I've never seen anyone more beautiful. I knew right then that my son had fallen in love. The room went very quiet. Daniel was staring at his father with wide eyes, and I felt my heart hammering against my ribs. Dad, Daniel said quietly, we talked about this. Talked about what? Not telling her how you feel. Richard stood, placing a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. Daniel, I'm an old man. I learned a long time ago that life is too short to hide your heart. Your mother and I, we had 10 beautiful years together before she was taken from us. 10 years. And you know what? I'd trade everything for just one more day with her. Not because those years weren't enough, but because when you love someone truly, completely, you want every moment you can get. He turned to me, and I saw tears glistening in his eyes. Sarah, my son loves you. He's loved you since the day you walked into his building. He's just been too afraid to say it, too worried about scaring you away. But I'm old and I'm dying. Dad! Daniel stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. It's true, son. The cancer is back, and this time. Richard shook his head. I don't want to waste my remaining time watching you hide your heart. I want to see my boy happy. Truly happy. And Sarah, you make him happy in a way I haven't seen since he was a child. I felt tears streaming down my face, and I didn't even know when I'd started crying. Daniel turned to me, and in his eyes I saw everything. The love, the fear, the desperate hope. Sarah, I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other 3 months. But my father is right. I love you. I've loved you from the moment you stumbled into my building with rainwater dripping from your hair and determination in your eyes. I love the way you scrunch your nose when you're concentrating. I love how you sing off-key in the elevator when you think no one's listening. I love your kindness, your intelligence, your incredible strength. I love you so much it terrifies me. He took my hands in his, and they were shaking. You don't have to say anything back. I just needed you to know. I needed you to understand that this isn't just dating for me. This isn't casual. You're it for me, Sarah Chun. You're my future if you'll have me. I looked at this brilliant, powerful man who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions without blinking, and I saw him vulnerable and open and completely, utterly in love with me. Daniel, I whispered, standing and cupping his face in my hands. I love you too. I've been afraid to say it, afraid it was too soon, afraid you'd think I was just some naive girl with a crush on her boss. But I love you. I love your passion, and your drive, and the way you remember every little thing I tell you. I love how you treat everyone with respect, from the janitor to the board members. I love the way you look at me like I'm the most precious thing in the world. He kissed me then, and I heard Richard chuckle softly behind us before quietly leaving the room. When we finally broke apart, both of us crying and laughing, Daniel pressed his forehead to mine. I want forever with you, he whispered. Is that crazy? Probably, I admitted, but I wanted to. Richard Park passed away 8 months later, surrounded by family. But in those 8 months, I watched the love between father and son deepen. I watched Richard smile as he walked me through his garden, telling me stories about Daniel's mother, about their love story that had shaped everything Daniel knew about devotion. He's like me, you know, Richard told me one afternoon, the sun setting behind us. When we love completely. His mother was my everything, and I see the same devotion in Daniel's eyes when he looks at you. Take care of him, Sarah. He acts tough, but his heart is tender. I will. I promised. I love him more than anything. I know you do. Richard patted my hand. That's why I can go in peace. I know my son will be happy. I know he'll be loved. At the funeral, Daniel held my hand so tightly I thought my bones might break, but I didn't complain. When he spoke about his father, his voice only cracked once. My dad taught me many things, Daniel said, looking out at the crowd of mourners. He taught me about business, about integrity, about hard work. But the most important thing he taught me was about love. He showed me that real love isn't quiet or convenient. It's bold and brave and worth every risk. He taught me that when you find someone who makes your world brighter, you hold on to them with everything you have. His eyes found mine in the crowd. He taught me that by loving my mother with his whole heart, even knowing he'd lose her too soon. And he taught me again by encouraging me to love Sarah, even when I was afraid. Dad, I promise I'll love her the way you loved Mom. Completely, devotedly, forever. Daniel proposed 3 months after his father's death, in the same study where I'd first met Richard. He'd recreated our first date, complete with a rainstorm sound machine and coffee with 2 sugars, no cream. My father told me something before he died, Daniel said, kneeling down with a ring that took my breath away. He said, "Don't wait for the perfect moment. Create it." So I'm creating this moment, Sarah. Right here, in the room where you won my father's heart almost as quickly as you'd won mine. Marry me. Build a life with me. Let me spend every day proving that I'm worthy of your love. Yes, I sobbed. Yes, 1,000 times yes. We got married 6 months later in Richard's garden, surrounded by flowers he'd planted and love he'd nurtured. As Daniel and I exchanged vows, I swear I felt Richard's presence, his approval, his joy. Now, 2 years later, as I watch Daniel sleep beside me in our home, I think about that rainy Tuesday afternoon that changed everything. I think about how I walked into Park Enterprises looking for a job and found a love that changed my life. Daniel stirs, opening his eyes and smiling that smile that still makes my heart skip. "Good morning, Mrs. Park," he murmurs, pulling me close. "Good morning," I whisper back, kissing him softly. "I love you," he says, like he says every morning. "I know," I reply, smiling. "Your father told me." He laughs, the sound warm and full of life. "Of course he did. He never could keep a secret." "I'm glad he didn't," I say seriously. "I'm glad he pushed you to tell me. I'm glad he taught you that love is worth a risk." "Me too." Daniel kisses my forehead. "Every single day I'm grateful. For him, for you, for this life we're building." Outside our window, the sun rises over the garden Daniel tends in his father's memory. In that garden grows a rose bush, Richard's favorite, that blooms year-round, defying all logic and season. Daniel says it's impossible, that roses don't work that way. But I think it's love, Richard's love, still blooming, reminding us that the best kinds of love don't die. They transform, they grow, they continue to nourish the living even after the lover is gone. And as Daniel and I get ready to face another day together, I send a silent thank you to the man I only knew for 8 months but who changed my life forever. Thank you, Richard, for teaching your son to love boldly. Thank you for seeing me clearly. Thank you for pushing us together when we were both too afraid to leap. Because of you, I found forever. Because of you, Daniel found happiness. Because of you, we found each other. And that, I think, is the greatest gift a father could ever give.